Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Autodesk Developer Summit of GDC 2025. Thank you all for being here. I know it's early. A few things before we begin. We will have a Q&A segment at the end of the session. So you'll see there's some mics standing in the aisles. So if you have a question, just head up to the mic and ask it at the end of the session. We're also recording this session, so it will be available to you after the show. And if you have a cell phone on you, which I assume most of you do, just put it in Do Not Disturb. All right, so kicking things off today, we have a very special speaker. He leads M&E Research at Autodesk. He gets to call San Francisco home. In fact, when I hop on Zoom calls with him, he's often in our technology center over at Pier 9 working on some really cool projects. And today he's here to talk to you about some of those cool projects. So him and his team are looking at how AI will shape the future of the industry, respectfully and responsibly. And he's developing AI tech of his own. So if you're curious about AI, you're in the right spot. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Autodesk's Research Director, Hilmar Koch.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Good morning, good morning. I am Hilmar, and here to talk with you, not at you, but with you about AI, artificial intelligence, and workflows in the M&E industry. As you know, I'm a researcher, so everything, absolutely everything I say is speculative. There are no product launches here. It is more about thinking about the future and what might come. And so please respect that, our safe harbor statement. This is what we believe we know about the industry, entertainment in general, but number one, it is a perfect storm of disruption. AI, of course, is the topic here, but I don't need to tell you this. In gaming, a lot is going on, from the production costs going up, then mobile gaming coming online, artists on strike, the IP tussle here and there. And then last week, Niantic drops out of gaming altogether to go into spatial. I don't know if you caught that. That's a pretty interesting one for me. Secondly, there's this, in the linear entertainment industry, I'm a film guy, as you can tell. In film, there is this David versus Goliath scenario going on where the little guy takes on the big guy. So influencers making a lot of money, taking eyeballs, and creating content is really in competition with movie theaters at this point. And we had to say goodbye to Technicolor, a company that's 110 years old, been around since sound, since color, gone, just like that. And for Autodesk, all of this is super important because, yes, we serve other industries, but what is happening in entertainment right now, what you all are experiencing, that is just an indicator what's going to just ripple through the rest of all of the other industries. So we need to pay attention what's happening here and be active in conversation with you. With all that in mind, we released this last year.
At Autodesk, we're obsessed with geometry, and that obsession is reflected in our software. Introducing Research Project Bernini. Experimental generative AI for quickly generating functional 3D shapes, from 2D images, text, voxels, or point clouds. Our first Bernini model is focused on unlocking professional workflows, generating multiple geometrically realistic 3D objects to accelerate every stage of the creative design process. As Autodesk trains it.
What happened there? I almost fell off the stage. Another accident. Did you catch this? We had some vases in that video. We went from what was inferenced and did a quick cut to something that was very clean geometry. I see some nodding. Thank you for paying attention. Conversation with us. So yeah, we were excited about Bernini. We released this video. It was quite well received by many professionals, but then we had some very kind customers that were generous with their candid and actionable feedback about what we were saying there. You can read between the lines. And as researchers, we're like, oh, there's something, we're not paying attention enough. So we did pair up with Electronic Arts. And specifically, Rick Stringfellow, who is probably doesn't need an introduction here, but he's a fellow at Electronic Arts, a veteran of the industries. We worked with them on trying out Bernini and what it meant for their workflows. And it was super, super educational for us as a company. And I think we just deserved that feedback that we had gotten from customers generally. And Rick says this, what he expects is that these models that we're all building nowadays, they're going to be commonplace. But what he expects from us as a company is to get integrated tools and workflows. I hope that resonates, and I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into this. So I'm going to take you on a little journey here. And heads up, there's some Midjourney material coming at you right here. As researchers, we like to think generally, like all entertainment, ways of entertaining people. You might be designing a theme park, or you might be making an interactive experience, a game like this one, or film as well. In fact, we think so generally that the principles that we're currently looking at apply to writing books and novels. What do you have to do here? You have to think about, well, how does this thing start? What's the middle? What's the end? So big picture, what are the big pieces that have to put in place? What's the scene? What's the location? Who are the characters? How does it all play out? So a little bit finer, zoomed in on the detail that you're designing. And then all the way down to dialogue, you want to get the notes and the emotions and what does it feel like? What's the fun of it all? All of that plays out no matter what you're designing. And we often do that with language, right? Language is powerful. It can influence the big picture all the way down to the nuance of a conversation between people. And now I have a little audience interaction to offer here. Language is also ambiguous. So here I typed a single word into a Midjourney prompt, full frontal inference. I got this back. What do you think the word was? Anybody want to take a guess? Not all at once. Come on, somebody, please. It was the word heat. I hope that makes sense. Afterwards, like to us, it makes sense, but humans probably wouldn't have necessarily responded like that. Here's one more go at it. Anybody want to guess this word? What's that? Intricate? No, it was the word set, which is the most overloaded English noun. So it was kind of unfair. But so I get the movie set on the lower left. I also get maybe the tableware set on the lower right-hand side. Top right, desktop set. I don't know. I can't make sense of that. And I'm completely lost with the top left image, how we get from set to that. But all that aside, now I want you to put yourself into the shoes of somebody who's designing entertainment, your game, your movie. And you come across a script and you will find the word adore. You type that into Midjourney, and again, this was the straight report back from Midjourney. With all of these other variations, I was surprised that door looked, relatively same composition all the time. And as you know, when you have something in a script and you start with artwork that defines that word, of course you're going to get a note. So let's pretend that the note is that the person who is in charge doesn't just want any door, they want an old room with a door which is half open. Okay, makes sense. You could still keep going at it with Midjourney. You'd get pictures like that. Where some doors are not even on the hinges, there are some other doors that open to a radiator below a window that's half open, and you have a problem. You know, you could roll the dice here many, many, many times, and then you might still not get the kind of control that you need to drive this forward. What is a creative person to do? And heads up, the next slide is my personal record for the number of animations that I ever put in a single slide. So grab a bag of popcorn and relax, because here we go. What is a creative person to do? They're sitting in front of this image. They have a task to do. They created this image in a generative system, and they're using abstract language. And what I took away from Rick Stringfellow's, our fellow at EA, the workflows, the integrated workflows, what I took away from that is the workflow is breaking down the task of answering that note. I have something, I have to get to the next point. What is my journey to that place? That is my workflow. And let's go through that. This is a thought experiment, but go through it with me as I would imagine somebody would do that. First, they're going to say, well, you know, I have a specific note here about it has to be a room, and it has to be a door, so I'm going to get my room inferenced first. I'm going to make a couple of different versions of just the room, so I have that isolated, I have control over that. Still pretty high level, still controlled with language. Similarly for the door. You know, I got reasonable examples here. I could still work with that. But then comes this. How am I going to deal with this question? The door has to be half open. And I do believe that right there, that is the central drama of the creative effort. Because the person is, they know, you know, this is very ambiguous still. And I know my creative person, how do I give them the kind of tools that they can find what half open means to them? And if you're a good artist, you're going to say, well, you know, I'm going to just make an animation that takes the door, swings it open from closed to open, and then present that back as the next iteration of this creative act. So I'll take my door, and then I'm going to define where my hinges are, where my door handle is. And now I'm getting very, very specific. I'm getting away from the abstract. I'm getting into the area where I have more control over what I want to do here. And further than that, I'm going to define an animation that swings that door open from 0 to 178 degrees in 3 seconds. And you might recognize that little motion curve. And I hope you're getting my point, which is you are now very specific about what you want to do, and you have the control that you need in order to get the creative task fulfilled. Are you with me? Does that make sense? Okay, there's some thumbs up over here. Any thumbs down too, okay? I love pushback, so if you want to say something about that, maybe later you can also grab the microphone. But that's how, in my career, this has played out in abstract. I call this area in the center the area that is interesting to us as creatives. And that's where we need that multiple level of creative control, all the way from the scene level, from the acts to the scene, down to the detail, to the dialogue in that general metaphor. Not so fast, Hilmar. We have that control. We have Comfy UI. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that Comfy UI is very specific in the generative space. So you're trying to be specific in a latent model. It's like having a conversation, like doing mathematics with your subconscious. It's not plausible. It's not the way people typically work. And Comfy UI, it's the right thing to try out right now, but I don't believe it is really the answer to the creative workflow that we're chasing. And then thank you. Just last week, another drop from Claude controlling Blender. This is a system which lets you use language, so very abstract ways of expressing your intent, but be driving a deterministic system. So Blender has a very specific deterministic classic CG model. So that is possible, but what you're losing on that side, see, we're all the way over on the left-hand side, so we're no longer in the generative space, we're losing out on that generativity. So this idea that the system can give us emergence and can give us something new to work with. Look around the room, still no pushback. So there's one more thing, and that is, I don't know what's going to be in the center here. We've been using CG models, our very specific deterministic models, for decades. Now we have the latent models coming on that are abstract. And we are trying to control these on that spectrum, on that diagonal. Maybe there is a need for a different kind of representation that lies somewhere in between. It could be a version of splats or nerves. I don't know what it is. And I'm standing here, as a researcher and being honest about it. It's the area that I'm really scratching my head over. And it is also the thing that we actually were trying to do with Bernini. So the idea that there is a representation of geometry that is no longer our traditional way of doing it, but more controllable than a purely latent space, that's a journey that we're on with Bernini. And we just got the message a little wrong, especially for the entertainment team. All right, that's the end of this slide. Enough with the theory, Hilmar. Show me the money. What are you actually doing that's useful to me? So if you're sticking with this framing in general, I'd like to present to you MotionMaker, which is a research effort that we have been collaborating with the product teams. It is a machine learning locomotion model where you define a path on the ground, and then you can run either humans or animals along that path, and it's integrated with human IK. So while these two characters are on the same path, the woman on the right can get there in a relatively natural motion, whereas the Viking has to really, keep huffing around the corner here to get down the path at the same speed. And that is a capability that we're working very, very hard to get into your hands as quickly as possible. And as I'd mentioned, MotionMaker is something that also works for animals. So this particular animation was put together by the principal author of the system, Evan Atherton, where he animated choreographed this scene of a number of dogs, including the behavior of jumps and sitting down and getting up, with just a few keyframes that just indicate what is supposed to happen here. So we're really happy with MotionMaker, and we're really happy that at Autodesk, anyway, we have a really tight collaboration now between researchers and the product teams. That belongs here. So it's really not that far removed from Maya. It still runs in Maya, and you can still use keyframes, so it's why it's trending in the lower left-hand corner. But it was important for us to make take a stand and say, no, what does integrated workflows and AI, and models, what does that actually mean to the average creator? And now back to the storytelling thing. Like I said, we're generalizing. We believe that how you tell stories is very important no matter what you design. And we're looking at taking abstract languages, books, novels, screenplays, and then analyzing it for how can we make little maps that are logically in line with what the script is prescribing, and making methods that allow us to edit the mood. And these are true research experiments that are very, very far away from a product right now. And because they're so abstract and really not hard, it's kind of hard to imagine how they're really going to influence the process in the future. We've made ourselves, forced ourselves to create a game or a sandbox, a real-time sandbox in which you can try out the storytelling and then see how actors or characters that are in this scenario will act on their own volition, and some of them being your foes, others of them being your friends and helping you with your quest. So we have that as a proof of concept that the idea that forming and shaping the story is a valuable approach to getting stories, getting games authored, but also, like for an animation director, they would probably use an interactive scene just to simulate how the different characters play out in this world. And then lastly, I'm going to advertise Project Reframe, which has nothing to do whatsoever with artificial intelligence. But it's still in the real-time space. So we created using Quest product lines for Meta, and working with Meta, we created an animation tool, an animation prototype. Where you put on your headset, you act out your performance or your GDC talk, and you record it, and then you get a little animation stand where you can come back to your animation that you just recorded and refine it. And that's what that looks like, laid out. Like I said, it's called Time Tunnel, and you have an animation stand on which the action is actually played out in front of you, and then you can reach in there. You'll see the research doing this here in a second. Start pulling just the end effectors of the character that you're animating right there. So Project Reframe, also just a prototype at the moment. However, if you happen to show up at the VIP event at Autodesk tomorrow night, there will be a station where you can try it out. I really enjoy it because it belongs into the category of a much more accessible tool. We have had people from manufacturing and from architecture record a performance and actually tweak it a little bit. So here's where these 3 projects belong on my little map. I explained MotionMaker already. Time Tunnel is entirely non-generative, as Time Tunnel and Project Reframe, entirely non-generative. It uses a more abstract level of expressing your intent and interacting with your content. And then ultimately, the work that we're doing in storytelling and building sandboxes to improve your story and shaping it to craft your game or animation is further over on the right-hand side. And that's it. I'd love your feedback, please. I am listening. It's important for me with my position in the company that I get your input, like we did from our customers and from Electronic Arts. But are we on the right track with this, or what else should we be considering? And opening up to the mics already. And while you're making your way to the mics, no one is going. There's one question coming. I'm supposed to ask you to, no, go ahead, to fill out a response to the talk as well, or a little surveys. I think it's somewhere in the mix. Yes, sir.
Instead of making the whole image generated by AI, can we have something AI related to simplify our current workflow, like unwrapping our UV faster with machines, so we don't have to spend whole day laying out UV?
Come on. Automatic UVs. Okay. So let's see if I repeat the question. You're telling me, don't show me images directly inferenced from language, but give me a UV automation tool as a more practical application of artificial intelligence.
Maybe we are not there yet. Maybe we can streamline our workflow by streamlining our current workflow.
Yes. Thank you for that feedback. It's been received numerous times, and we've had at least one go at this, at least specifically the UV automation, and failed, quite frankly, on the first go we had at it. But recently, thanks to our work across industries, there is a different geometry representation in manufacturing that has given us an idea that we're pursuing right now. So specific to UV, keep asking it, or we're trying. And I'd also like to point out that I have a tendency to talk about the far out stuff. Of course, there are automations in your production management, in how you use the tools, in what you do, that we're trying to leverage, that are understood. Like these should be expected table stakes that are coming to the various tools that we produce. So yeah, you're right to ask, and I should have mentioned that a little bit earlier. Yes, I think you were over here next. We're coming over there. Yes.
Thanks. Could you comment on the tension in the corporate world between being seen to be first with deploying a sexy-looking AI product versus deploying a really good, useful AI product?
Yeah, man, that's where I get out of bed. Really, I have that debate with my leaders all the time. Yes, there is this tendency, like foundation models. Yeah, we're gonna go solve all the problems. But there is an interesting corollary across all industries. The finding is that you create something that looks, presentable, looks big, looks foundation-like, and changes everything. And people often that respond well to that kind of model are not professionals. When you ask a professional, they'll say, could work, I'll take it, some of it, but then I rework it into something new. And I believe it is my job within the company to reflect that sentiment and do my own internal thought leadership within the company. So I much appreciate the comment. I'm working on it. We had something over here. Yes, sir.
So what you're showing is most of the time the fun stuff of the process. So everything that people want to do, but then it results into more work to do the cleanup and all that stuff. I would rather see AI do the cleanup for us than do the fun stuff.
Yep. Okay, so repeating the question, don't focus on the fish in the tank, but rather the water. What is the environment that needs to be healthy and in order for the fish to thrive? You are right, sir. We need to be focusing on that. In fact, this just fluttered in my inbox a couple of weeks ago, that focusing in on that automation and doing the drudgery taking the drudgery away, that should be the job of AI. I agree with you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so with a multi-level creative control, like you're showing in your slides, I think that a lot of the AI tools that I've seen recently, they do the generative part well, the beginning part, where they give you an image, they give you something that they've generated to work with. But when it comes to iterations and the nuance of going through the multi-step process of creating a 3D model, for example, a lot of AI programs seem to struggle with that. So I was just curious how Autodesk is approaching the idea of having AI help with that iterative process in like a very detailed, nuanced way, if you've thought about that at all.
Repeating it, so generative does ideation well, but not iteration. Message also received, I hope that's what I was trying to demonstrate here. I understand that, and I also have worked on enough movies that I get that sense, that it's true for gamers, it's for everyone. So it's more work and it'll take longer, especially with the big question mark, if you remember that. I am not sure whether we have the right representation where that is more possible. If you take splats as an example, these are I don't need to explain this to you what splats are, but point clouds that have the lighting baked in and materials baked in theory, and so they have them all conform to the same data model. And that means, yes, you can manipulate it in a richer way, but then the nuance of iterating, well, what if I want to keep the lighting the same, but I just want to tweak the materials, or what if I want to change the shape and then unbake the lighting out of it? There is a trade-off in there, whether you want to make models that are richer and more manipulatable, and whether we're more trending towards our classic way of modeling the content or on a purely latent space. One note, I can't help it, but if you think about an AI model, really, it's all of the connections are there, right? They're from the lighting to the geometry to maybe even time. But it's all just, it's completely mixed together. In classic ways, everything is separatable and on its own dimension. Anyway, I'm getting off track. I hear you, and I think we will work on this for a significant amount of time, and it's the work to be done.
In my mind, like AI can immensely help in the way we reduce repetitive tasks, right? Like skin weighting, UVs, et cetera, to try and get down to, AI is really good at getting to like the 90 or mid-90s percentile mark of something that's completed. And so I find it interesting that Autodesk hasn't gone, well, if I'm going to skin weight this rig to the skeleton or whatever, or I'm going to do UVs or geometry optimization, edge flow, et cetera, that those things aren't, they're very well known. It's understood what is a final result, and being able to get you there to, say, a 90% mark so that an artist can then jump in and be like, okay, now I'm going to take it that final 10%.
Yeah, AI being good at getting us started, but then the remainder of the path is almost impossible. So I would call that as mode number 3 for looking at automation and speeding up workflows, and making artists work funner and less drudgery. Again, well received, and it's surprisingly not that easy. In some cases, it may not even be machine learning methods that find the solution there. Specifically for UV, we had a really significant effort going on for automating that, and through machine learning, and that particular technique failed. So you have to, it's patient money is, I think, is asked for within the company. Yes, sir.
Hi. I have a question about Project Bernini. You mentioned receiving a lot of candid feedback, which is often a word for negative feedback. But it looks like it could be a good accelerator for 3D production. So I was wondering if you could share more of the feedback you received and how far you think it is to be usable in production?
So Project Bernini is a research model. It's trained on publicly available data sets. We have strong ethics and will not do the wrong thing with data, especially not our customers' data, you all's data. So Bernini as such couldn't be used in a production as it exists today. It's trained on 10 million objects from the public domain. Didn't stop us from trying it out in a production workflow, but there were questions like, hard surfaces, how can I get a flat plane, how can I get non-smooth edges? So that is one big one. There's also texture and resolution generally from the output that is still weak, and Electronic Arts said, well, you're helping me. I think that's to everybody's point here. You're helping me with 1% of my workflow. The 99%, I still have to do so. No thanks so much for this one. It's really meant to be the beginning of a journey of building models that are more complete. And of course, this is a very competitive space. Against Bernini, there is at least a dozen competitors right now that are outperforming it in some cases. Not really an answer to your question, but we're continuing on it. Resolution and textures are one of the things we're going to look at next. And we're also looking to partner with people who want to be on that journey with us. So if you're working for a company that wants to have their own version of it, and you have large data sets and diverse data sets, it's a really important thing, then come talk to me. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, I wonder what's the plan of Autodesk about AI agent? Like, will Maya support MCP model context protocol natively? Since in that way, our developers can develop some functions about how to control LLM with some specific work.
Yeah.
Like, we can create auto generation about second UV, and we can set the materials and textures automatically.
Thank you so very much for this question. Like, what is Autodesk doing for agentic workflows in media entertainment? We've built one years ago already, but now at the time, the language models were not mature enough to really make a dent. So let me take that back. With the reasoning models on the rise, clearly this is an important topic to revisit. I also do believe that I'm coming down on the Jan LeCun side of the argument that language isn't a spatial construct. And for language models to really be as impactful as possible in these workflows, we have to teach it logic and spatial reasoning and all of the above. So again, we need to revisit it and make and build agentic workflows. It's quite the rage these days in the company. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm not a 3D artist, but game designer who is a beginner in 3D right now. I would like to ask who is the Autodesk AI software primary target at? So is the AI vision focused on helping beginners, or is it more toward to optimizing work for advanced professionalists?
So who are we aiming, what audience are we aiming at with AI?
Yes.
Right? My thesis is that everybody tries it. The existing professional artists, the ones that are aspiring artists, the ones that are hobbyists, and then the general audience, everybody will try out language models, image generators, maybe video generators. So I do believe the potential audience could be vast, incredibly vast. But for us, what's important is that the people that are using our software today are the ones that make a living with it. So ultimately, those are the ones we want to support the most, and then also hopefully catch the ones that are aspiring artists, the ones that don't have necessarily the kind of technical training to deal with 3ds Max or the complex systems of today, but get them started, just like a language model gets you started in programming these days, right? You can get something and then iterate over it or have an example to play with. That is what an aspiring artist will do today. So the answer, long-winded answer, the shorter version of the answer is our existing customers are those who want to become also professionals in this space. Thank you. Thanks for the question. Oh, right over here.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So I'm a game dev, I'm a creator. I want to be able to just create and not worry about people misusing or twisting what I do and me being responsible for it. You're a researcher, you're working on something that's exciting and potentially incredibly useful to everybody, but we live in an age when reality is under attack. There's alternate facts and all this kind of good stuff. And potentially what you're building, like Oppenheimer, is a nuclear strength propaganda generator. And I'm just wondering, like, I'm just saying, like, you mentioned that you talked to the thought leaders in the company to try to do the right thing. And I wonder, does Autodesk, I don't know, are you doing anything in the public realm, like outside of the company, outside of looking at the customers and the creators, like the greater environment, and using some of the cachet you have, the expertise that you have to sort of try and influence, you know, limits or some kind of, I don't know, regulation, caution on using what's an insanely valuable tool for good, but just trying to make sure that it's not misused.
What are we doing about the misuse of AI? Is that it?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, we started with our own trust principles. If you go to trust.autodesk.com, we've enshrined those and make it available to everybody. Jeff Kinder, our leader for the manufacturing team, has spoken to Congress recently. No, sorry, not Congress, to some panel in Washington. So we're starting to be consulted more often because, like I said, what's happening here in entertainment is rippling through all industries. And it becomes even more consequential if lives are at stake, right? If you're using AI for, even if it's not nefarious, but it can still be dangerous and life-threatening. So we have a responsibility there, and we're taking it seriously. And I appreciate what you're saying is that don't just play with these things so much, just think it through. To be conversant and understand the stuff is important as well, right? Rather than showing up and making up solutions or trying to move regulation in a way that doesn't, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. You have to be informed when you want to have the conversation over in Washington. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think I've exhausted. Oh, you're good, Wells. Yeah, yes, sir.
There was an interesting talk yesterday about the cost of AI, right? So ChatGPT or whatever is a couple of pennies per inference and so forth. And so by recouping that with $20 or whatever it is, plus whatever investment they have, they can make that work. Have you looked, or are you cautious about like what some of these things take to process in the cloud and whatnot, and how that affects your price point and cost structure?
Yeah, that has had me lose sleep at least a year ago in a very dramatic way, because not just cost, but it's also trees that are being burned and data centers that are being built and energy that's produced and cooling. Yes, 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 yes. I am kind of surprised and heartened by the fact that DeepSeek proved that, I don't know, 10x, 100x faster inferencing, that the time of optimization has already started, and I am somewhat optimistic that like the invention or innovation in how the language models can be optimized are actually going to address that. There's this weird thing that even if we make it cheaper, people will use it that much more. Run inference on 100 images if it runs 100 times faster. So. I personally don't know how to address that. That has always been true for me as a professional in film. But at least we're doing something is being done about inference cost, and we are thinking about it too, because we feel it in our pocketbook, right? Running Bernini is expensive, you're correct. And of course, inferencing and training are two different vectors on which you need to optimize there. But you're nodding heavily, so you know what I'm talking about here. Yes, sir. Oh, here you are.
Well, first off, thank you for giving the presentation.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask more about like the industry as a whole. Obviously, Autodesk has a lot of competitors, and there's a lot of other AI models out there. How does Bernini, for example, like differentiate from other AI models and other competitors?
Well, we like to think that we're deeper into 3D and CAD geometry than anyone else is. So understanding shapes and inferencing on them in geometric and spatial reasoning, and also in physics-informed machine learning is an area where we just have to succeed, right? You cannot inference anything in order to put a building into the world without consulting physics along the way. That to us, so working in 3D, physics-informed modeling, and then ultimately also agentic workflows are where we believe our differentiators are. And I appreciate the question. Yes?
I had a question about who owns the art? If you're using the creative, if you're using generative AI to create the art, who owns that copyright, and how does that, does that give certain companies pause using it in their pipelines if they're concerned that there might be some legality that there is unsure?
Who owns the art that comes from AI? When you use our tools, our goal and ambition is that you do. And in areas where I've had influence, I can unequivocally say that's true. So for instance, for the MotionMaker inferencing model, the locomotion model with the dogs and humans, that data we fully owned, and even the people who are participating in the process were aware that machine learning models will be trained from it. So with those models, you can rest assured that they're you're clean, you have a clean title. So I have that ambition and ethos, certainly for the entertainment industry, and working on that as well. And sometimes it's surprisingly gray, I have to say, but I know what you want, and working on that. Yeah. All right. Hi. Yep, you're good.
Hey. Okay. Well, I mean, the topic is about like creative workflows in general, right?
Yeah.
So you were mentioning that even out there are other models that are probably more advanced currently at this stage in terms of like generation or things like that. So since you are talking about workflows, I mean, just taking a look at the showcase of Bernini in this case, this break that was in between, between the render and the final product, I mean, I guess there's a workflow behind it.
Yeah.
So have you considered like using other external sources, like other different or more advanced models implemented into the tools and create workflows based on this?
How to summarize this question? Are we looking outside when we are building the workflows and planning our roadmaps for the future? So, of course, it's our job to pay attention to what's happening elsewhere. The breaking down of the tasks into, or that something that a model can, the capabilities that exist in breaking them apart, isn't something that is quite as plug and play as in traditional software, right? You can't just extract that from the model and then plug it in over here. But one of the things that I have learned, and I try to promote, is that working with creatives while we are developing models and developing the workflows is absolutely mission critical. We can't just put it in a box and ship it. And that's really become a significant part of the change that we're seeing in how we approach customers and partner with them in defining the workflows. So again, too long-winded, but the answer is, instead of looking at competition, is listening more to the people who will use the stuff, and making them happy is usually the right answer.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, so I think we should be wrapping up here. One last
question.
Burning question. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have MotionMaker,
yeah,
like animation. You have Bernini, more like in the modeling sort of space.
Yep.
Do you have anything else for any other projects, like working on procedural workflows, like Bifrost or CAD for architecture, for example?
So my research team is working on that. We have a few other models that have come out. The ML deformer is one of them as part of Maya to compress the capability of a deformation into a single model. So please check in with the model, with the product teams here. So Ben Fischler is at the show here. So there are more and more things coming that are supporting the workflow. And do please keep your eyes open and ask some other Autodesk product people. Yeah, they're coming. All right. Thank you so much for joining me this early, and have a wonderful conference, everybody. Thank you.